Out of curiosity, can you guys humor me and raise your hands and let me know how many of you know what cystic fibrosis is? I love you guys. Usually I get like one person who raises their hand, so that's awesome. All right, so just as Christina mentioned, I'm going to read to you. I actually sent this off to the publisher today, and I edited quite a bit of it just for you guys tonight. So, and before we get started, I'm guessing this one's my water.
I think so.
We'll find out. CF's not contagious, you all know that. Okay. Cystic fibrosis is a life-threatening genetic condition that fills my lungs with infected sticky mucus that I can't cough out easily. It ruins my pancreas and requires 30+ medications a day to digest my food. In addition to that, I spend 2 hours using a nebulizer which opens up my airways in an attempt to help me breathe. It causes a rare form of diabetes that I now manage with insulin. I usually spend several months every year connected to an IV pole through the port that is surgically implanted into my chest, undergoing aggressive treatment. My lung function ranges from 40 to 70% of PFTs, and I've been hospitalized this year 3 times already, most recently the entire month of July and part of August. This is the 3rd time in 20 minutes my IV pole beeps suddenly, alerting there's air in the tubes connected to my port. I glance at the clock, 2:32 a.m. You'd think that hospitals are a place to rest, recover, sleep in. But during the day, there's a host of staff members walking in and out, just checking and doing blood draws to test how your body is responding. In the past 6 hours, I've had 2 of those, 4 respiratory treatments, 38 pills, and a continuous drip of IV antibiotics to destroy the latest bacteria that threatened to strip me of any of my future opportunities. I know I could page the nurse and let her deal with my finicky IV pole, but then we'd spend the next 3 hours catching up on everything that's happened in the 2 months since I've seen her last. And I'd have to tell her that part of the reason I am back here so soon is because I keep getting denied for a drug that has been proven to halt the progression of my disease. I decide to get up and walk to my machine. I adjust the settings and flick the air bubbles back up through the tube into the line. Despite the blue lights glowing from the various machines, my room is dark. The sound of my lungs attempting to work for once penetrates the silence. For the most part, there is that eerie silence, with the exception of a random code blue, which in a twisted way reminds me to be thankful that my cheeks are still rosy pink. I open my eyes and glance around in the thankfulness to have such vitality after 28 years of being told next year may not happen. I have my blanket from home and my lucky teddy bear to keep me company. On the shelf are 2 dozen roses that the love of my life dropped off yesterday. This hospitalization is relatively easy, but still, every night I can't help but wonder if these roses are going to outlive me. I spend the nights here I can't sleep thinking about how much I love my life. When you're grateful for every moment, you suddenly don't care whether these moments are good and bad. You just want another one. You quit capitalizing on only the good stuff because the bad stuff is still a reminder that there is air in your lungs and pink in your cheeks. I decide to unhook myself from the IV, go for a walk. It's unusually warm in my room, but I put on a sweater because it hides the needle protruding from my port. I peek outside the door, making sure the nurses won't notice me duck into the back hallway. They've been there for me when visitors haven't been able to make it. They were even there for me several years ago when a boyfriend I was dating dumped me via text message because dating a girl with CF is just too hard. I've spent birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's with these nurses. How many more of these holidays do I really have left? I set my phone alarm to go off at 3:30 a.m., so I'm back by my next round of IVs. On my walk, I like to let my mind drift to over a year ago when my boyfriend and I took his RV from Vegas to Utah in an attempt to have one last vacation before another hospitalization. Wow, we both said in unison, looking up at the sky as 2 stars streaked across in the midnight sky. Who's lucky enough to see 2 shooting stars just moments apart? Surely this means that there's hope, that I'll be alive. And the second wish that I made was to make up one day by an alarm clock instead of an alarm cough. With my lung function just below 50% and on the 4th hospitalization in 6 months, those wishes carried with it every ounce of optimism I had left. I had tried for the past year to get approved for a drug that was thought to halt this progression, but every month I found myself buried in paper while the insurance companies blamed the manufacturer for the high price tag, and the manufacturer blamed why it was so affordable, and the clinic filled out form after form after form trying to be the mediator. "What are you thinking?" my boyfriend asked with his goofy smile and wide, bright eyes. We heard an animal off in the distance and turned our faces to the right just in time to see our 3rd shooting star. "I once heard that a shooting star is bad to wish on because we're actually wishing on something that's already dead," I responded. "Actually," he enthusiastically interrupted me to prove I was wrong, "that dead star carries in it all sorts of things, like bacteria and cells and other scientific stuff that's just waiting for the right environment to culminate a new life. Maybe my lungs are that perfect combination of bacteria, cells, and other scientific stuff waiting for the right environment to culminate actual life." My 3rd wish was that I was wrong. I smiled and turned towards him as shooting star number 4 lit up our little world. Wish number 4 was for my heart, not just my lungs. "Klyn, what if you don't get this drug? Have you thought about what happens if you aren't approved?" he asked. "A drug company can't really do that. An insurance company can't really put a price on your life, can they? Will they?" I shook my head no as we left the RV rooftop and went inside for bed. The next morning, I noticed a voicemail on my phone. Recognizing the number, I grabbed my boyfriend and put the call on speaker. "Hi, Klyn, this is Chris from Vertex," the message began. We were suddenly enthusiastic about all the hope we could now have for our future. We could finally put all of our efforts into building out our recruiting company, writing a book, settling down. What followed was a 42-second scripted speech that shattered every dream we had ever had second by second. I was denied. Somewhere an executive decided my life is not worth the cost of Orkambi. "You know what this reminds me of?" he offers. His fists were jammed in his pockets and his eyes were narrowed. His jaw was jutting out. "In college, I took a history class, and we studied torture. There's this thing they do to prisoners where they lock them in a cell and put food just outside the cage. The captive is forced to stare at this food, slowly starving to death. How are you even going to tell your parents?" My thoughts were interrupted as I stopped in the hall to grip the wall for support as I coughed and struggled to catch my breath from this walk. And so here I am, walking an empty hallway at 3 a.m., hopeful for the future, but reminiscing about my amazing past. What if this is the hospitalization where I leave through the morgue instead of the entrance? As a kid, I was very involved in socializing and networking with other patients within the cystic fibrosis community, until one by one they died off. I wonder how many of those kids had a chance to say their farewells. And more importantly, what am I going to say on my deathbed as I wait for this drug? "Mom, I know it's not fair that you have lost your mother and daughter all before your hair turned gray. I remember coming home from school as a kid and seeing you jogging through the neighborhood. I would never have lived as long as I did without the motivation you provided me and the example you set to be incredibly fit. I don't know how you raised 2 kids, worked a full-time job, and still had time to take me to every cheerleading practice. You were always so positive, and you are still my best friend and inspiration. You may have loved me as long as I've lived, but Mom, I've loved you my entire life. Dad, remember that time I was 16 and you wouldn't let me go downtown with the girlfriends? I screamed at you that I hated you. I never told you this, but I'm pretty glad now that you were tough on me. I'm thankful you never coddled me and always wanted more from me than what I wanted from myself. I only recently learned that a father's love is about protecting your little girl, even when it means saying no to things she thinks she wants. I wasn't an easy girl to raise, and yet every day you held the family together. You were always so strong. I love you, Dad. P.S. Mom needs you more than ever, so if you haven't kissed her lately, take a moment to tell her how beautiful she is, and kiss her like you did when you said I do over 30 years ago. Little brother, I know you didn't have an easy childhood, and you acted out a lot for the attention that I got. Not many people believed in you, but you believed in yourself, and here you are, college graduate that's about ready to be an accomplished architect. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for your wedding. I never told you this, but I'm so proud of the man you became. Love of my life. Do you remember long before we ever had the guts to tell each other how we felt? When we watched Harry Met Sally, there's a quote. When you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. I make it a point to cherish every moment we share. It doesn't matter how much time I have left, as long as I spend every night in your arms and every morning with your kisses. The one thing nobody tells you is that statistically more people die in hospitals than in their own homes. Statistically, these deaths occur between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. Statistically, my family will attend my funeral within 5 years. There is power right now in being able to walk through the halls at the right time and place that pretty much guarantees my exit through the morgue. There's power right now in every breath, regardless of if I get this drug or not, because frankly, I'm way too busy living to die. In the midst of my thoughts, doctors and nurses rush past me through the hall in a frenzied state. The light in the hallway auto-adjusts to accommodate, and the speakers boom through the silence. Code blue, code blue. Attention staff on 2 West, there is a code blue in room 211. Close my eyes, and I offer up a prayer of gratitude that tonight, at least I survived. I just hope whoever was in room 211 was able to truly appreciate the moments that they were alive. I hope they didn't have to stare at food while they starved to death. I hope they had a chance to tell their loved ones goodbye. And I hope they realized life isn't measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the number of moments that take our breath away. Thank you.